Roll call.
Jane Aris.
Seema Sarafan.
Joyce Shuey.
Carolyn Watson.
Superintendent Art Jarvis.
Okay, if we can advance the screen, please. All right, at this time, we would ask our executive director to please introduce our student tonight.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you an 8th grader from Taiyi Middle School, Chloe Liu. She's here to speak to us tonight. Her father, Zen, is in the back taking pictures. Welcome, Zen. So, Chloe, come on up.
Welcome, Chloe. So at this time, will you be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. We're going to follow you. You start whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, in a minute or a few seconds, you'll see the land acknowledgement, and we'd be happy to have you read that for us. Thank you.
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie tribes. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance.
So we're excited to hear about you as a student, and so this is under student update. So Chloe, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your experience. It's at Taiyi, right?
My name is Chloe Liu. I'm an 8th grader at Taiyi, and Taiyi is a really great place. It's a really positive place, and everyone is very inclusive, and there's a bunch of diversity there. It's really great.
Okay, so it's your time, so go ahead.
Okay. So this is my speech called Teachers Matter. From the beginning, students can tell whether a teacher is truly passionate about their subject and job. The class becomes intriguing, entertaining, and collaborative. There's a strong relationship between the student and the teacher, as the teacher puts time into making sure that students fully cognize the curriculum, and as students put in their best effort to learn. Students look forward to these classes, to spend time in an interactive environment, and when the bell rings, students are excited to utilize what they have learned. Teachers do their part by teaching students, not making students memorize formulas or notes, but to ingrain a level of understanding and build a solid foundation on a topic. These two parts work together. They are dependent on each other. Teachers are kind, responsible, respectful, and create a positive environment. But sometimes it's difficult for students to appreciate teachers if they make potentially unintriguing lessons, have a biased grading system that doesn't prioritize quality and depth of thinking, but quantity and how many fillers the student can squeeze in, or don't check to ensure whether students are learning. Though some may say that the same works vice versa, I personally believe that when a teacher truly cares about students' learning, the lessons won't be taken for granted. However, there is an underappreciation of teachers and the work that they have as they deal with children and keep them in check, as well as pacing a curriculum and making sure that each individual student is keeping up, spanning from sometimes 20 to over 100 students. Students are like balloons. A balloon can go up after being inflated and filled with helium, just like how students are able to progress in life and past future challenges as they are filled with knowledge. A teacher's role is to inflate the balloon with enough helium and keep it there. For a balloon with helium may float, but leaks can easily be found in the seal, and the helium can gradually escape over time. These leaks can be found in many ways, and it's in the students' best interest to patch these up. For example, when teachers don't realize the impact of their grading practices and prioritize quantity over quality by grading not based on the depth and reflection of understanding in the work, but rather if the work fills up an excessive number of lines with fluff and repeating statements. Furthermore, leaks can be found by simply stuffing information in students, such as reading word for word off a PowerPoint with little to no elaboration or examples that will help students comprehend the content, or not proving why a certain solution works, but by simply saying that it is how it is. If students feel forced to waste time in and out of class without obtaining applicable information and knowledge, they feel the brief capsule of youth ticking away. If there's one thing that you all will take away from the speech, I hope it's that teachers mold students' learning and growth. My wish is that all teachers are truly enthusiastic about their class and lead students to feel the same. Ultimately, enthusiastic and passionate teachers keep the balloons afloat. Every student deserves a decent teacher, and every decent teacher deserves a decent compensation in return. That is all. Thank you for listening.
Chloe, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I just would like to share the acknowledgements for January. Monday, January 16th, is Martin Luther King Day. The 22nd of January is Lunar New Year. The 22nd of January is also Treaty Day, known as the Treaty of Point Elliott. The 27th of January is Holocaust Remembrance Day. We celebrate and remember all of these holidays. Thank you. At this time, I go to item 1.7, and I ask for a second to my motion to approve tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. I now ask for a second to my motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I believe I have 5 ayes. Aye as well. Am I wrong? Got it. Okay. So with 1 abstention, there's 4 votes, I believe, in favor of passing the consent agenda, if I'm interpreting Director Watson's motion. Okay. So the motion carries. At this time, we look to our superintendent for his update. Superintendent Jarvis, thank you.
Thank you, President Serafan. Tonight I have 2 major elements of my report. One will be a progress report for the annual plan that specifically looks at the area of staff diversity. And secondly will be an introduction to the study topic this evening on forward planning. But before I begin those 2, I'd like to do something that just take a moment of a personal appreciation. This is my first meeting back, having missed a couple, and I think you're all aware of my situation. And I just want to express my deepest appreciation to everyone who's been so gracious and so supportive, and say thank you to World. And it's nice to be back. Having said that, I also want to reiterate something that I put in writing this last week. We'll hold just a second.
Yeah, we'll just wait 1 second. We're trying to correct a technical challenge here. Do you think we're okay? Yeah. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Just a quick reference to update people that I did put out a statement last week, but I'd like to say it publicly, and that has to do with the safety and security world, and specifically the issue of security officers. I noted that we are analyzing the data from the staff and students and public regarding the proposed CEO program, which was to be the revised SRO program. And the question for community input and public and staff and students was, does that in fact meet the needs? And I did share with people that there would be no implementation this spring. The fact that the timing particularly allows us to engage the new superintendent after he or she is selected, and be able to fold that in as part of the transition and how we approach the whole issue of safety and security. And I have asked our Dr. Calvo to please take all of the data that was provided to us from the 27 meetings of students and staff and community open houses, surveys, feedback, and present that. Naomi is our, Dr. Calvo is our Director of Evaluation and Assessment, and that is her world, and she knows how to do it well. So we'll be coming back hopefully for the very next meeting with that data and information available. But I wanted to make sure people knew that and heard me say it as part of the superintendent update. Now on to the two pieces that are going to take some time. And I'd first like to reintroduce Dr. Jeff Thomas, our Executive Director for Human Resources, to present the plan, the update to the annual plan that really speaks to where are we on diversity on our staff. Jeff Thomas, would you take it from there?
Thank you, Dr. Jarvis. This is the 8th year that we've been able to look at and present the results of our efforts around staff recruitment and diversity. And the last couple of years have been unique in all of the challenges and the circumstances that if you were to look at all of the potential assumed effects of the pandemic, a decline in enrollment, the cost of housing, and some of the other factors, the predictor of our diversity data would tell us that we would most likely become less diverse because we would have lost staff, and we would have lost staff in a way that would have been in categories that would be predicted to be our diverse staff. And that is not the case. Our key positives going into this year are really about not only did we not lose diversity in light of having reductions in staff based upon enrollment, but we actually increased our diversity as a district by 1%. And that to me is really important, and it tells a story of us continuing to invest in the need to be diverse in our community and to be diverse in our staff. We have a couple of high points in that diversity, and that is, as an example, with our overall staff, we've increased our diversity with our staff that self-identify as Asian by over 1%, our staff that identify as Black or African American in our principal and assistant principal ranks, we increased that by 6%. Our overall diversity of the, let's see, where am I right here? Oh, our overall diversity in terms of our administrative staff increased by about 1%. So overall, we think we have some positive measures. So longitudinally, since we started this work, our diversity went from 14% in terms of classroom teachers to now we are at just under 25%. So we're making progress. I think it's also worth noting that this is a focus of all the area districts in the greater Puget Sound area, and Bellevue has the most diverse classroom staff of any of those districts, looking at data from 2021. We don't have the 21-22 data yet, so we think that is a positive. The last two pieces, we added 2 categories this year in our reporting for staff, and we'll find out long-term what the impact is. The first one is We added gender X non-binary, and we also added for people to be able to identify 2 or more races. Previously, we had those categories not identified, and we think over time that gives our staff a better opportunity to self-identify. Statistically, we are looking at the staff that identified as 2 or more races to see if that in any way impacted previous reporting, because it was not something that we reported on, and we'll report back on that. Lastly, there are some exciting strategies that we are engaged in related to our work. First, we have started a pilot program with our certified engagement specialist, and I know one of them, Eve Chan, is in the room here somewhere. Hi, Eve. And this is a pilot program that is specifically designed to support our certificated staff of color. It's early on in the program, so we don't have results yet to share, but we will share those later this year. The second thing I think it's important to note is this is the year that we need to update our affirmative action plan. So that will be one of our next steps to be taken. And with that, Dr. Jarvis, I am finished with my report.
I would just ask the board, if you have additional questions, and you may, to please either get those to me and I'll get information back to you, but we're going to try to go back to that place of not trying to do the Q&A at this point. So, Madam President, I don't know if you want to take any questions now, but I'll just record them and get back, or they can send them to me.
Okay, so if there are questions regarding the report that we just heard, you're asking to take them later?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the question, it was, he'll take them now, but we'll get answers later.
Correct.
But
That-
there's, I
yeah,
know you have
that's
another
why-
part of the agenda, so let me
I'm
know if
sorry?
you want, you have this listed twice on the agenda, so if you want us to hold the questions, we can hold
Yeah,
them.
what we basically did was we anticipated this could, there could be more here to review than we would have time for without going into public comment time. So for that reason, we sort of planned for time afterward. If you're done with your update, then what I might say is, maybe I'm wrong,
I'm done with that portion.
that portion
Now
of
I wanna
it. I would
introduce-
be inclined, if you're good with it, let's start taking the questions that are directly responsive to what we just heard. As we get close to 5 p.m., we will take a pause. I'd like to hear public comment. After our time for public comment is done, we'll return to the rest of your update. So I'm going to guess maybe Director Chu might have a question. Should we go ahead and start there?
Sure, we can start there, but I think that a lot of questions we submitted ahead of time got answered, but not necessarily in that report just now. So I don't know if, in the interest of community, just to, for the record, that some of the questions that we were asking are also around how well are we doing retaining staff overall and in general, and just making sure we have that positive environment. And I think Dr. Thomas referred to some of the programs we have in place that are designed to work on that. But my understanding was there would be an additional report in the spring on retention. So I'd like to clarify if that's coming. Also, there was some questions that were raised in the past about whether or not we had compared how we're doing with other school districts in the area. And,
Yeah, the benchmarking. Yeah.
yep. And I think retention in particular, also around staff of color, to make sure that our environment is open and welcoming for all. So most of those questions we've gotten some level of answer to. I don't know if they want to address any of that here, but
Yeah,
I think that's important.
I will try to get information back to you and for the public for anything else.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is some of the questions we'd asked on Monday, you don't necessarily have the answers to right now. Director Chu outlined some of what those were. You may be getting answers for us, the benefit of the board, as well as those listening, I'm hearing, for our next meeting. Is that right,
Yes.
Superintendent?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Let's,
we actually have answers to some of them in email.
some of them we got them
Yeah.
in, I think, writing. So I wasn't sure if we wanted, if we have the time, they are potentially interesting. I didn't know if others, if the plan was to share those or if you want to hear any other questions.
If I may just clarify, in the information that we got back to you, if we missed or haven't answered a certain portion yet, please let me know that you're waiting for that piece, because I don't have a list of what we may have not put in. I thought we got most of them. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
as I said, the question I have is just to confirm, we are getting a report on retention, right? A deeper report on retention in the spring. Is that
Yes.
correct? Great, thanks.
Okay. So I will just ask, is there any other question for the superintendent, Dr. Thomas, on this topic? No. All right.
Then
Dr. Jarvis?
If I may, I'd like to take a minute to introduce the study session and where we're heading this evening. I'll take a point, I guess, of personal privilege, just that I've been around for a long time in the education business, and as we watch the cycles come through the communities and the schools, it is, I haven't double checked all my facts here, but I believe it was probably in the mid 80s or in the 80s, the last time that Bellevue as a community looked at declining enrollment and what it meant and where to go. That was a consequence of the baby boom of the 60s and many schools being constructed and filled, and schools side by side in neighborhoods, which then became empty nest neighborhoods. So I say that because it's been a long time since Bellevue has then looked at something other than potentially just growth and or steady. And as late as 2018, as the bond issue was planned for 2020, the information was that we wouldn't be growing, but we were going to hold pretty stable. Then a strange thing happened, which was a pandemic simultaneous to you passed the bond issue in Bellevue, but the enrollment was very difficult to figure out in 19, 20, 21 exactly what was going on between the crisis with the pandemic and the remote learning. Excuse my voice. The reality was that even last year, there was a lot of guessing by school districts and estimating and expertise trying to say how many students will come back from those that were missing statewide. And if you follow the news, you recognize that statewide, many of those, the losses did not come back. But one of the pieces that was not, I think, recognized during those few years was that we were watching a number of things happen in the Bellevue School District. And Deputy Superintendent DeVita is going to walk us through in the study session, so I don't want to steal too much of what she wants to introduce. But I'd like to lay the groundwork in the sense that it is very clear to us from the professional demographers that we've employed, from the data that's available to us, that we're entering a significant part in which there's a decline in the birth rate. There's a significant change in the Bellevue community in terms of individual residential housing versus multiple density. Any of the statistics involving what we expected to see out of condos and townhouses and apartments was off by many, many factors, and we're seeing a very different population, perhaps as a result of the COVID again and the pandemic, but we're not seeing families moving into those units. We're seeing individual, single people without children. And as a result, as a superintendent that has been around a while, we look at a situation that we need to quickly move to stabilize. Deputy DeVita will move us into any number of pieces and facts and data. We tried to begin to roll that out in December so that people would see the problem, not to have any solutions or recommendations, but rather to begin the process that this was not just any old year or any old problem. It really is, how do we stabilize the district from many, many factors, one of which is finance and the finance and its effects on the school district if in fact we are tremendously inefficient, if we don't attend to what's coming at us. And number one driver, I was asked by a board member many, many years ago who was brand new, what would be the number one factor that they could look at if to know that a district would be headed for financial trouble? And that's the answer is enrollment. If the enrollment is declining and everything else is staying the same or increasing in terms of expenditures, the district is headed for some significant issue. Whether you're in Bellevue or a small district, or whether you're in Eastern Washington or Western Washington, the system in Washington is built on state funding being the driver. I would add to that that within the last week and a half, you saw the governor's budget as it was rolled out. The governor is proposing, as an example, $6.26 billion in increased funding in the state of Washington. His proposal has less than 0.4% of funding for schools, additional funding for schools. Schools and school funding have, to some extent, I think, I know your legislative work, that has gotten lost in the world that McCleary must have fixed it, that ESSER funding must have helped and made it different. And the recognition is not there right now politically to recognize that school districts are not in a flush position and they're not going to have cash and money and financial situation to be able to ignore the factors that are coming at them. The school districts last year at the legislature asked the legislature to take the money that was not going to be spent on enrollment and use it in the schools, and that was not recognized. That money was not used for schools. It was saved by the state of Washington. I'm not trying to make the state the culprit here, but at the same time, I'm trying to say that if we look outside of our own district for people to solve our financial problems, and if we ignore the declining enrollment, we already have schools that have gone from, in 5 years, from 500s to 300s to 500s to 200s. We have a much smaller set of elementary schools, and with that comes what is the appropriate size and where's the ability to sustain everything that we want for our children in schools that are half the size they used to be. And the reality is I want to set the stage for the study session, because this is our opportunity to move from where we were in December, which was we've looked at our October enrollments, November enrollments, we've hired the demographers, we can give you answers now on what the issues are and what the projections are, and we are facing something that we need to begin. There are obvious questions. We don't come with, I don't have in my back pocket that solutions with, if we do this to school X or school Y, that we're going to solve the problem. We're beginning the exploration. We've identified that as we look around with the demographics in Bellevue, that if we look at the issue of consolidation, we have space and we have schools that would gain and schools that would lose. And we would be looking at shifts that would be shifts that we haven't faced in Bellevue for a long, long time. That's the topic we're opening tonight. I have seen the emails rolling in. I've seen evidence of people saying to others, you need to rescue this school right now because it's marked for closure. My answer is we're just beginning that process. We're beginning the recognition that it is to the benefit of the Bellevue community and the Bellevue schools to pay attention to what we're facing, to look for solutions, and to do that in ways that make sense for program, for quality. I have learned in my short time in Bellevue, fantastic outcome for kids, some wonderful results. great teaching, great curriculum, wonderful work. I'm not trying to gloss over the things that we can improve, but certainly some terrific results. And we cannot sacrifice that on the fact that the superintendent, I'll just own it myself, can't duck the issue. We have to address it and say, how do we begin to resolve this? Having been around as long as I have gone through it. I recognize the pain that comes with that. I don't understate that people get really nervous as to whether you're going to mess with their neighborhood school, whether you're going to be put in the position as a staff member where you have to shift from a school you've been in your entire career to something different. Again, in that vein, I just want to make a statement and then hand it back and close my report. That's exactly part of the reason we need to attend to it, is we can look at the staff right now, and many of you are here, our staff, and say, if we do this well, we won't have a cliff to fall off financially. We won't have layoffs. We're able, as we have the last 2 or 3 years, to handle attrition. When there is a shrinkage, we can figure out retirements and changes that people move for whatever reason. And Melissa, I just want to express deepest appreciation for our deputy. She has taken this on to try to say, how do I best paint the picture and begin the process, knowing full well, I keep assuring her that I'm going to be the one that gets the darts and not her, because she's done a masterful job of trying to bring the information to you in a study session this evening. We expect to have other people greatly interested in that study session, but just know that as far as the statement to me that says, please don't close school A, we're not at that point. We're at the point of saying, we are watching significant shrinkage. We're watching significant loss over the next few years. They're here now already in the elementary. Immediately following that will be a look at the middle schools, because our middle schools are going to be not very far removed from the elementaries. And then our high schools would be the last to be looking at a significant different change, but down the road compared to where we are elementary. So, President Serafin,
Thank you.
That's my introduction to the study session, and
Okay.
I hand it back to you. And I'm going to ask all questions be part of the study session. And,
On this topic, I understand.
I'm just trying to lay the groundwork. So.
All right, so just want to say a few things because you asked me to, and I think it's appropriate. First of all, I just want to say that I have great faith in our Deputy Superintendent, Melissa DeVita, and you will hear other people say that. And I just want to say, as a board director, that's not just a platitude. It's because what she does and what she has done for years is think about the places a district can go when things go wrong, when we are doing spectacularly well financially. And that's usually the hallmark, and has been the hallmark, of Bellevue School District, of always thinking about rainy days, even when you're having sunshine. And I think that's actually why we've done so well. So that's the first thing I want to say. And I also have great faith in our superintendent, Art Jarvis. I'd also just like to say that I think, and I hope this is fair to say, I think the 5 of us as board directors have spirited debates on many things. We are always united on the importance of community engagement. And I have a great deal of faith in my board colleagues on always ensuring that we look at everything through the lens of what's best for students. So one thing I would just like to share is, back to that community engagement piece, before we can even partner with the superintendent to think about a timeline for how best to make sure community engagement is really well done, we need to know enough about what the potential and likely issues are. So that's where our study session really starts. It's us learning in a focused way from our deputy superintendent and superintendent what the issues are. And we know that we will be working with them to figure out how can we ensure the study session's optimized for our learning, but you guys can all hear it. So that's why it's live streamed, and we'll have overflow seating here, but it's set up for us to learn in a study session. But future community engagement will be set up so that you can speak and be heard. And that's what we're going to be learning. And those will be future steps. And what I heard Dr. Jarvis confirm tonight is what we've also heard, decisions haven't been made. And so that's just something to underscore once more. So now I will give the general statement about our public comment. Director Chu.
Thanks, Mr. Director Sarafan. I just wanted to bring.
Sir,
So
you'll
I'm
need
gonna
to
go ahead
sit
and
down.
talk.
We do not take off our masks if we'd like to wear them. Thank you.
Seema, so what I wanted to say is just that I think it'll probably come up in our study session, but I don't know that everyone's going to stay for that. And I wanted to bring one other piece up that I have heard from our staff, and that is that in many cases with our shrinking enrollment, there are more implications than just finances. There are also implications about the programming we're able to offer our kids, whether or not kids get stuck in classes that are 2 grades together, whether or not we're able to spread programs around multiple schools or only some schools. So my understanding of this process is that in addition to optimizing for finances, we are also working with our educators and our principals and the whole community to optimize our programming for kids to make sure that we're actually not just doing okay by kids, but we're actually going to improve what we're able to provide our kids by the end of this. Is that correct? And is there anything that should be said about that at this time?
I just want to respond, and I think what Director Chu has said that is, I think, really a great point, is none of us are looking at this through the lens of doom, but rather we always have opportunities every time we have an inflection point to do even better. And I think, Dr. Jarvis, that's probably something maybe for you to speak to, as well as maybe Deputy Superintendent DeVita. I know you've said we're not having the discussion. I think it's a good footnote on what you had said before we start public comment. So thank you, Director Chu.
I was trying really hard not to launch into all the other pieces. Clearly, the finances are just one piece. They're one of the pillars of keeping the district stable. But the purpose is, how do we do what you're talking about? And what is a size that allows us within the state and the position they put together financially that allows us to make choices of what works for us, what works for the children. And it's just that one of the keystones to that archway, you put your finger on where we really need to go, and that is that if we lose the ability to do all I guess what's important, because we've been careless with the finances, then we really lose what's intended. So that raises questions, for example, of as the difference between an elementary school of 450, 500 students and an elementary school of 250 to 300 students. And that's a huge factor that you put your finger on. I'm trying hard, Madam President, not to launch into the study session, but those are the pieces that are all tied to how do we do this well, and how do we make sure our programs have permanent homes. Example that you're going to hear in the study session that fits that is if we are operating a school with 50 or 55% capacity and half the classrooms are empty, it is not it's not any kind of efficiency or effective program. So we start losing, can we keep a full cadre of counselors, administrators, staff, at double the cost for half the students? So it just gets more and more, and I'm trying really hard not to.
I hear you. So we will begin, but I think I'm just going to underscore, I think Director Chu's point is well taken, that as we've talked about things, just knowing in the prior sessions in December, in November, we have continued to say what I think we always feel, which is we will make sure that we are living our values and actually finding opportunities to do even better by our students. So I think that's just a key point. I'm going to go ahead and give my prefatory comments about public comment. It should be projected on the screen as well, but this is the time during our meetings when we receive public comment. some of you are new to this, so I'll make sure I say this somewhat slowly, but details about our public comment and expectations are on our agenda. It's displayed on the screen. Please remember you can also communicate with us by email or voicemail. Our board is grateful to receive public comment, and we appreciate the thoughtful input of our community. Because of the limitations of our board calendar, public comments limited to 20 minutes. So we limit comments of each person to not more than 2 minutes. We listen to all your comments carefully, but we generally don't respond. And we expect speakers to engage in a civil manner. And although this may seem obvious, I do need to say it. We have to make sure that all forms of communication, you're mindful that we need to be sure that we're not hearing slander or libel. We don't invade people's privacy. Because we're live streamed, there's not obscenity or harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination. We also can't accept public comment on pending investigations involving student discipline, allegations of employee misconduct, or allegations of discrimination or harassment. And that's so that we can preserve our ability as board directors to potentially hear an appeal. So with all of that, I thank you and want you to know that we are listening to all your comments, and we do so intently, but we generally don't respond to the comments in this setting. So with that, I look to our board coordinator to please let us know who the first public commenter is.
Thank you. Jess, you can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. Chris Marks is first to comment.
Okay, thank you. Former School Board Director Chris Marks, looks like you're up first. Thank you. I forgot to say, there'll be I said 2 minutes. You don't have to self-time yourself because it's projected up there and you'll be able to see. Thank you.
Director Sarfan, before Ms. Marks starts, sorry, Chris.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
It looks to me like we may actually have a couple slots for additional folks if needed.
Yeah,
Based on time. Is it clear that people can sign up with Ms. Worth if they wanted to?
I believe she's navigating that, and
Okay.
she asked me something about online folks, and I think she's working on it. So
Okay,
thank you.
great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks,
We also make an announcement that we don't, I see that certain members of the online participants have their hands raised, but we don't have the capacity to be answering those raised hands during our board meetings, but you're welcome to send email and meet with us other time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Vice President Shuey. Okay. Ms. Marks, thank you.
Okay. Hello again, dear friends and colleagues. I return tonight again wearing my hat as trustee and co-chair of the grant-making committee for the Bellevue Schools Foundation, and again taking advantage of your significant megaphone. Tonight, I want to remind anyone who's listening about a program of great significance to folks in this educational community, which has been supported and promoted by the foundation since it was first taken on by Bellevue teachers in 2000, National Board Certification. This week, the district's new coordinator of the program, Anna Hartelstad, attended our grant-making meeting and reminded us of what those 23 years of efforts have meant, starting with national data about improved outcomes for students, and then tallying the widespread pursuit of this rigorous examination of classroom practice by so many of our teachers that Bellevue is one of only 4 districts in the country with more than 40% of the teachers having National Board Certification. And of course, no mention can be made of this remarkable program and foundation connection without remembering Sherry Ladd, the first executive director of BSF, whose dedication to the professional development of educators inspired the original connection, and her husband, Jim, who has established an endowment in her memory to continue her efforts. It's easy to take for granted something that's been happening for 23 years. So I appreciate this opportunity to remind folks that the Bellevue Schools Foundation has a single purpose, and that is to support district programs that need added financial underwriting, things like National Board Certification. There's no better example of the foundation living up to its mission to promote and fund the best possible learning opportunities for all students in Bellevue's public schools. Thank you very much, and good luck in your very difficult task ahead of you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Mintier.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Christy Mintier, and I'm a parent of 3 former Bellevue School District students who attended Ardmore, Highland, and Interlake between 1992 and 2018. And I've also been a Bellevue School District employee since January of 1999. And I've been in my current position as executive assistant to support the Bellevue Schools Foundation since July of 2016. Bellevue Schools Foundation is currently giving $800,000 to BSD this year to support early learning, boom experience, mental health, computer science, B medication, and teacher board certifications, to mention just a few of the programs. In addition, BSF has contributed over $4.5 million to BSD since 2000 to purchase books for libraries and classrooms. I continue to be surprised that our community doesn't know more about all the programming that BSF supports. And I wish that BSD was more proactive at recognizing BSF funding. My ask to you is that the board continue to highlight the special relationship between BSF and BSD. BSD is the only organization that BSF funds. And my hope is there will be more specific and strategic recognition of BSF in the future. It is vital to BSF fundraising efforts that BSD educates the community about programs that are supported by BSF. BSF is not just some benevolent corporation that gives to BSD, but rather it's funded by community donors. That includes parents, BSD staff, and local businesses. BSF helps to bridge the funding gaps caused by our lowering enrollment and by the lack of state funding. It is us, together, all giving to BSF, which helps to support each and every BSD student. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I will interrupt and ask that I have more than 10 folks who have asked to make public comment tonight. Because of that, we will need to randomly choose folks to make comment from the pool of folks that did not sign up. So I will explain just a little bit. The board's policy has been that if folks sign up to make public comment on the Wednesday before the board meeting, so that was yesterday, by noon, they will get a place at public comment. If you sign up after that, you get put into a pool, and I will ask the computer to randomly choose folks from the remaining slots. So we are going to have to do that tonight. It is an unusual circumstance for us to have more than 10. I want to make sure that our online folks get the same chance at commenting that the folks in the room do. So I will ask at this time, while we're having our in-person commenters speak, if you are online and you wish to make a public comment, please raise your hand as an attendee. And that includes the 2 folks that I have listed on this slide. I have not found your names in the attendee list, so please do raise your hand and let me know that you're here. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Amira to come up and speak at the microphone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Amira Shahem, and I'm a senior at Sammamish High School this year, and I'm the co-president of Sammamish High School's Black Student Union, as well as a community leader representing Eastside Youth Coalition. Having been informed that there will not be police in schools as a part of the community engagement officer program this school year is truly like history repeating itself. At the beginning of this school year and on an ongoing basis, we set out to continue the tireless efforts of our alumni, Amal Roble, Batanya Gade, Leah Wazibo, and Omar Fajiri, who were founders of Eastside for Black Lives, and during the 2020 and 2021 school year. And each of these amazing student leaders devoted countless hours to ensuring that the SRO program was suspended, just like the CEO program will not be implemented this school year, both during and in part resulting from superintendent transitions, neither because of a true commitment to removing policing in schools. These are not systemic decisions and they will not continue to be sustained. And we as student leaders refuse to reinvent the wheel. And as our alumni referenced, they helped produce an extensive 68-page document, Bellevue School District School Resource Officer Program Advisory Committee report to the superintendent on that was presented on July 1st, 2021. And in addition to that report, over the last 2.5 years, countless student testimonials, emails, petitions, like a lot of our valuable time had been spent to express that we don't want police in schools. And I mean, we also want to reiterate that there's so much data out there that supports that police officers in schools don't actually prevent major threats of violence or school shooting threats, like, none of that. And so we don't need more focus on community engagement groups and surveys and student panels. We just need more action and more preventative measures. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa McCarthy.
Hello, my name is Lisa McGaffey, and tonight I'm speaking as a 15-year veteran BSD teacher and as a proud parent of 2 Phantom Lake Eagles. And thank you to all the Eagles here showing support. Hearing that Phantom could close was a heart-wrenching blow to our staff, our families, and most devastating is the negative impact it will have on our children. Our school has increased in enrollment consistently, houses an incredibly effective and impressive preschool program, and is a community hub for over 400 families. When you include preschool, which is an integral part of our P through 5 community, our school is at 76% capacity. On the fall panorama survey, 83% of our students responded favorably when asked if they feel a sense of belonging, compared with the district average of 78%. We consistently outscore the district average in all but one area. This is a huge source of pride at PLE. Our students feel supported, our families are connected, our staff is a family. With the full school, effective programs, and students who feel valued and supported, closing Phantom Lake would be a huge mistake. Thank you.
Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Alex Sitter. It's me, remember. Sie Heil, dem Nazi Gestapo democracy fascist.
I'm sorry. Sir,
What?
turn on. No, I'm sorry. This is not within our rules.
No, we have a constitution, we have dozen court decision, we have open public meeting and everything what is I doing legally. It's my 11th election. Right now I go to...
Sir, we need to ask you to please step away.
Why?
You're going to have to leave.
No, I understand. Why?
You're going to have to leave.
No, you don't touch me. You cannot touch
We're going to stand in a brief 3-minute recess.
in just a moment, okay? Thank you.
Okay, we will be resuming our meeting in just 1 minute, if everybody can just retake their seats. I'm sorry? Yeah, I think we could. Why don't just send a message to Hannah if you don't mind. Okay, we'll be starting again in just 1 minute. Okay. All right, so before we start again, let me just say 2 things. First, anybody who was affected, offended by what you heard, we apologize. We do our best to try to anticipate that, and we thank you for being patient with us, but we're sorry for having to be subjected to that. I also just want to thank the 3 people who just jumped up. I think I saw Shamari Jones, John Harrison, and Jeff Thomas just step right up, and I just thank you for doing that. So thank you, and let's move to Lauren Houchin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Houchin. I'm a parent of 2 students at Phantom Lake Elementary School. Before I get started, I'd like to invite my Phantom Lake family to stand up while I speak to help show our support for the school. I just have a couple comments. I'll keep it brief. My husband and I, we live in Bellevue in the Lake Hills neighborhood. We bought our house about 10 years ago with the intention that once we had kids, they could walk to school. And our kids are 7 years old. We all walk to school every day, and it's a great part of our morning. We get to avoid traffic, we get fresh air and exercise, and the best part is the kids see all their friends while they're walking to school. I don't want them to lose that. It's a big part of our day. I also want to say that Phantom Lake really is an amazing school. My kids are both special needs. My daughter has a 504 plan. My son has an IEP. They've gotten so much support from our school team, the school teachers, the staff, the counselor, the psychologist. Everyone has helped get them to where they need to be today, and they are thriving at Phantom Lake, and I want to see that continue. So please consider the impact to the students and to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask our board coordinator not only to let us know who's next, but I'd like to just reiterate a question Director Chu had, which I thought was a great one. We did not accept the public comment of the gentleman whose statements violated our norms and our values and our policy. We asked if you could replace with someone else. So if you let us know who's next. So thank you, Director Chu, for the suggestion and for our board coordinator.
Thank you. We will move now to online commenters, and I do see my 2 commenters who signed up in advance. So I am going to allow the first person to unmute himself and turn on his camera. And please go ahead when you're ready.
Just want to make sure you all can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
Thank you.
The statement was prepared by the Family Advisory Committee, and I'll be reading on their behalf. We would like to express our appreciation to the school district for pausing any actions to bring armed police officers into schools for the time being in response to listening and reflecting on the stories shared by students, families, staff, and teachers. As the district pauses on this matter, however, our group would like to offer additional opportunities for consideration. First, when this matter resumes, we urge that the district co-create a process with students, families, teachers, and staff. We emphasize that the process of imagining a program that guarantees the safety of students requires partnership with students, families, and community members from its onset. We implore you to make this process a collaborative one that draws from the expertise of those closest to the center of this issue. Second, many people have been involved in this process going on 3 years now. And while this pause is necessary, we want to ensure that the vulnerable and brave stories of our students and input from our community are remembered and kept at the forefront when this matter resumes. The labor and testimony of our community are vital, but asking repeatedly is extractive and traumatic. Though we ask to co-create the process of exploring alternative opportunities to ensure the safety and well-being of our students, for our staff, families, and our communities, we also ask that the district find ways to document the stories and efforts that have already been made. And third, we want to emphasize that safety has been conflated with policing in our language and in constructions of justice. Instead, safety should be reframed and redefined through the lens of interdependence, care, and healing. Again, we thank you for pausing the process to analyze feedback and deeply reflect on the concern and suggestions that we have shared. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
So before our next commenter speaks, I know our board president is going to read a statement. I will just say before that happens that I have had 5 people sign up to do public comment. I now have 3 slots open. And while our next commenter is speaking, I will use the random number generator to choose 3 of those people, and we will call you up by name. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just say before we hear from our next speaker, our district continues to explore different ways to bring in the perspectives of an increasing number of community members. Vice President Shui let me know a short while ago that one of the people who registered for public comment tonight is bilingual Chinese and English and prepared to deliver his remarks in Chinese with translation into English subtitles. If that person is selected as he has been, we believe our technology can actually be attempted today, and we'd like to take a couple minutes to just adjust the settings. We note there's a significant lag between the speech and written translation, and the translation is going to be imperfect. We just ask our community to bear with us if we encounter any other hiccups, but more than anything, we also ask you to celebrate in joining with us, with what we hope would be an important milestone. Thank you. So Ms. Worth, you let me know when we are ready, and we will look at the clock and listen. And
I will ask Mr. Albrecht to give me a thumbs up when he has the technology in place.
Yeah, I'll let the 2 of you start and stop this because I think you have more visibility.
Okay, I have the thumbs up, and Mr. Peng, when you're ready, please turn on your camera and microphone, and we will hear you speak. Hassan Peng, you will need to turn on your own camera and microphone.
Let me just say, if it's not quite working yet, let's go to the next speaker and we will return. Thank you.
Okay, my random number generator has chosen Dr. Dixit as our next speaker, who is in person.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Dikshit, and I've been associated with education at different levels with about 20 years in industry. And so why I'm standing today is just to reiterate what Lauren and Lisa has already mentioned. I'm associated with Phantom Lake Elementary School, where my 2 kids go. And they've already mentioned how the PLE is working on the grounds. What I'm trying to say here is that there is certain degree of anxiety among the parents, not just this lot, many of these parents here, about the closure of the schools, which the news is circulating around. So if we can put an end to that anxiety by looking into two things are there, like they're falling enrollments. Have we looked into introspected that why the enrollments are falling? We can't just blame to the finances and outside factors. Is it the quality that's going down, or how we like the bunch of the teachers at PLE? They are amazing, and they have been doing great with the amount of resources they have. So have we looked into improving the quality and the resources we provide to our teachers so we can provide quality education? And that would definitely impact, because I have been in New Jersey, and I can definitely say the 7 ranking here translate out to 4 ranking in New Jersey, where I come from. So this is one thing we should also look into, rather than just pointing to external factors which are out of our control. The second thing, I'd just like to say thank you for doing great work. And the thing that I would put through is that closing the schools is not a solution to the problem, because that would lead to taking us to the Flintstone stages.
Thank you, sir. I apologize. In the interest of fairness, we need to make sure everyone has the same amount of time. Okay, can we have our next speaker, please?
Random number generator says the next speaker is Lisa Yang,
Thank you.
who is in person.
Okay, if you can come forward, please. I don't see anyone coming forward. So shall we?
I apologize. Lisa is online.
Okay,
I
thank you.
apologize for that, Lisa. I am letting you allow your microphone and camera now, so you will have to turn those on for us to
And
see.
can we go back to the translation, I think, into Spanish, which is, I think, what we should have in light of these speakers. Thank you.
And there was an email from the other speaker that he could not unmute. So if we can take a look at that after.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll do our best, and if not, we may need to revise. So we'll go forward. Thank you.
Okay, can I say something now?
Please,
Can you
yes.
hear me?
We'll start the timer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's the first time I joined the board meeting, and frankly speaking, I did not have any really prior knowledge or information about this enrollment decline and any potential plan. But the reason I joined this meeting today, and I want to ask if we have any plan keeping in mind right now that could share to all the parents about what we are going to do. Right now, because my kids is studying in Wilburton, so I only know that Wilburton is one of the 7 schools that will be impacted, but I'm not sure what is the plan would like. So if there any plan that we already have in mind and could share to the parents, that would be great for us to consider. And that's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Worth, do we have any other speakers? And have I know we're past our public comment time, so I need to be mindful of the rest of our board agenda. So please tell me who our last speaker is.
Our last speaker will be Sean Hill.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy I was chosen. So my son went to Phantom Lake, for the duration, 6 years ago. We moved to Bellevue for the schools. We love it here. Phantom Lake is our home. It performs exceptionally well. We decided to try sending our daughter to a lottery school, a choice school. It didn't perform as well, and she needed help. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the organization to help people who were behind. Phantom Lake did. She's excelling. She was moved in the middle of the school year so that she could try to catch up. Part of the reason she was behind, and no doubt many children, was the pandemic. The in-school, at-home learning was, as you know, had a large negative impact on the kids. They're all trying to catch up. This kind of disruption is not helpful at this time. It is a disservice for our kids. It's not the time to do it. Furthermore, we have not had the opportunity to see how we can fix this problem as the ones who are most impacted. I got an email yesterday at 4 o'clock. How can I register? By 12 o'clock, right? And I hear you're gonna decide next month. Well, how can we fix our problems, the ones that are impacted? For schools that are working very well, performing, so I urge you to reconsider and look elsewhere to save your money and give us a chance to participate. Because I truly believe it's a disservice and not helpful to close Phantom Lake and probably all, the 3 schools you're talking about at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So this concludes our public comment, and we thank you for coming. We do need to return to the rest of our meeting. I see a comment from Director Chu, excuse me.
Yeah, I had one question. Did we determine that commenter Peng cannot comment tonight?
I don't believe we resolved the logistical hiccup. If I'm incorrect, Ms. Worth can correct me.
Okay, and then the comment I just wanted to make is, I don't know if everyone who's come to speak realizes this is just a board study session. Like, we're not making, there's no decisions being made. We're being presented information tonight, and there should be
That's what I had said at the beginning, but I'm glad you're concluding with it.
I just want to reiterate, there's going to be a number of community forum opportunities, and those forums, my understanding is a place like where people will be able to give input, be part of making the solution, and be part of figuring out the details on how we proceed. So this isn't over. This is more of a midterm beginning piece of this where we're just getting presented tonight. So thank you for the comments, but please know that there will be additional opportunities to participate. Is that, Melissa, where will those be posted?
They have already been posted, so they're available on the website, and there will be individual emails going to everybody at every school from their principal with the dates and times. In addition to that, there will be focus groups for specific parents and families. For example, families with students with special needs, families who participate in the dual language programs and those types of things, so that we can hear from them directly. So those are available on the website, and also they'll be sent to individuals from their principals.
Thank you. And we do have Mr. Peng back online, so if we could try again, that would be much appreciated.
Ms. Worth, are we okay to go? Okay, why don't we go ahead and try that?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize.
Might want to, yeah, we can hear you. You might want to just mute your speakers.
Oh, hey, can you guys hear me now? Yep.
We can hear you. Yes.
Oh, shall we do Chinese or English?
We are setting you up for Chinese. Thank you for being part of this milestone moment as president. Excellent. We're taking a moment just to set up the technology.
Okay, we are ready for you to start when you're ready.
OK， 那我们就开始吧。各位老师、各位校董、各位家长、各位同学，大家晚上好。我叫彭和森，我也是一个 Bellevue School District 学生的家长。很荣幸今晚上能在这里跟大家分享我的一些见解。在几个星期之前，我听到说我们学区有可能会削减学校的数量或者合并学校。 我自己的工作是一名数据科学家，所以我自己平时会做很多预测和研究。我很仔细的听了我们学校的调查研究，就是预测我们学区未来几年来的房价、出生率，还有整个学区招生的情况。我觉得这一个调查研究是可能会有一些问题，比如说我们的调查研究里面说了我们房价可能会影响出生率，但是其实我们现在房价已经有在下跌。那么只有51秒钟，我非常快的说一下我的建议是，我们有可能出生率的下降是因为 COVID 的一个短暂的现象，可能如果可以的话呢，我们可以让我们学区内很多非常擅长预测的人员和家长一起来帮助学区做更好的预测，然后这样子的话，我们学区在未来的计划里面就会更平顺、更平稳啊。OK, that's it. Thank you.
And we have made history. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for your remarks.
Thank you, Vice President Shui, for bringing that to us as an idea and milestone. So now we move forward. Thank you all. We move forward in our agenda. And this is the time where if there's any follow-up relating to the superintendent update, we take it. If not, I believe in light of where we are, I'm going to suggest we move forward with board business. So Superintendent Jarvis, do you agree?
I will give the 10 minutes back.
Okay, so we are going to go to the third reading of policy 5253. I know from Vice President Shui, she's about to go to an open house for one of her kids and needs to attend that. So thank you, Vice President Shui.
Thank you. 谢谢大家.
Thank you. So I look to our Executive Director, John Harrison. If you would, this is on the policy. We've had a few rounds of it, and I know when we talked on Monday, I think we're pretty aligned, but you might be able to give us a refresher.
Yeah, thank you, President Serafin. And Jess, if you could put the marked up version on the screen, that would be great. All right, if you scroll down, oh, there we go. Now people can see it. Right there. What you see in yellow is new language since Monday's session, where we continue to grapple with confusion around the requirement of whom to report potential violations of this policy to. So what you see in front of you is hopefully completely clarifies two separate paragraphs. Dr. Thomas and I worked with General Counsel McMinamy. We received some additional excellent feedback from Director Chu, and now we have language that I hope clarifies this section that's been a bit of a challenge for us. Employees and volunteers who have reasonable cause to believe that this policy has been violated must report to the appropriate administrator within 48 hours of becoming aware of a potential violation. If the reporting person is a mandatory reporter and believes that a student has been a victim of physical abuse or sexual misconduct, they must follow reporting requirements in Policy 3421 and Procedure 3421P, which is sexual abuse, exploitation, and neglect. And that language matches legislative language. And then the final new sentence there basically indicates that the procedure will provide further detail on who the appropriate administrator for employees and volunteers to report to is, along with how to make a report in the absence of knowing who that person may be. So hopefully this clarifies the challenge that we've had in the last couple of sessions. I would also add at the bottom of the document, just if you just scroll down, you will see a couple of additional references right at the very bottom, Jess. Way at the bottom. Right there at the top, two new policy references. We've now included references to the policy that I mentioned, 3421, And if you keep on scrolling, Jess, the 2 additional RCWs that speak to that duty and authority to report for mandatory reporters. So hopefully that clarifies the challenges and would ask that you adopt as presented this evening.
Okay, I'm going to move for the passage of the policy 5253 as revised. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none.
I was just going to say, I like the new revisions because I was confused in the old version about, as a volunteer, particularly, your supervisor's the employee, and then what, and, so this is much clearer.
Well, I think all board directors, particularly Director Chu and I believe Shui, who had a variety of, as well, I mean, I think all of you, but a variety of specific points of clarification that made the language more transparent and easy to understand. So thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes, and thank you.
President Serafin, thank you, board.
Okay, so thank you. Working backwards from what's left of the time frame for our agenda, we have about 15 minutes for director discussion. There's 4 of us left. As Vice President Shui had to go. I do want to keep to our start time for a study session and still keep a break, which I think we need. So I'm going to ask maybe we just try to keep to about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to ask Director Aris to start, and I just note for anybody watching, if you wonder if board directors are dedicated, we are volunteers, and Director Aris is currently in South Africa, and it's about 4 in the morning, and she's here with us. So there you have it. Director Aris, would you like to go first?
Thank you for letting me start here. I appreciate that. I'm actually going to hold up my minutes and let other people go first, because I think I usually get to go first, being the first in the alphabet. So if one of the other would like to go first, go ahead.
Okay, Director Chu, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think that for tonight, we have there are so many topics that we should be thinking about right now, about school safety and holistic worry about students' well-being and health and how we approach school safety. And I think that's something that we will have on our agenda for the next meeting. So I'm going to leave that topic for next meeting. Not that it's less important, but we have a lot of things going on. So I would like to just bring into comment that what we're about to embark on, this sorting out how we can be not only efficient, but effective for our students, is going to be quite a journey. And we're going to get through it best for our kids if we can figure out how to do it in support of one another here on the board, here with our community. And I really appreciate that Melissa DeVita has gone around and already initiated a lot of contacts with staff and families and trying to solicit the input to put something on the table for discussion, because you can't go with a district the size of Bellevue and say, hey, what do we do with the whole district? Got to put something on the table. And I really appreciate the diligence that she put in to do that. I think it's still going to be a hard discussion, and I think it's important that we keep in mind that there is an openness to adjustment as we go, and that the community feedback is part of the puzzle, because it is all in service of our students. I'm going to take that as a hint that I've kind of said the most important thing, and I'm going to just let the next person go. But I just want to be clear that this is going to be a journey. It is going to be hard. And in the end, things may not be optimal or perfect for some people, and they may be better for others and less optimal for others, but they can't be bad for any student. And so we have to be prepared to kind of sort this out together, but we also have to be prepared to mitigate when we encounter things that we find out. We thought theoretically, you know, when you put it on paper, it looked like it was going to be great, but maybe we're going to have to make some mitigations that were different than what we expected. And I think our staff has the mindset to do that. And I hope that we are all going to do that together, because this is already hard enough.
Okay, I'm going to ask Director Watson, did you want to go next? Do you want me to go next? What's better?
Well, I just kind of want to add to this discussion. I will say there were a couple of people who spoke tonight who talked about how they would like to help be part of the solution, use their abilities to help us come to a better place. So I hope everybody will, in the community, will consider doing this, because so I understand it, these plans are not like plans in stone. We just know something has to happen. And so all the input from the community, hopefully we can find a path that will cause the least disruption to everybody. But I do think that I keep hearing from, maybe not the people in this room, but from outside when I'm looking at comments and I'm talking to, a particular friend of mine and so forth, people sometimes don't believe that we actually don't have the money because they drive around and they see the beautiful buildings that we have and so forth. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we pay a lot in taxes, but it goes up to the state and it comes back per capita, per head. And our levy is also capped per capita, and most of our expenses are on, you know, salaries of teachers and necessary staff that work with our kids. So take all that into consideration when you're thinking about, are we really, you know, do we really have the money? Because people keep saying, find the money someplace else, and I just don't know where. But like I say, open to anybody who can help us with a solution.
And Carolyn, I think that's such a good point. And I just want to say we've run a deficit. We've run into our reserves for multiple years now to compensate for the enrollment issues. And so at a certain point, the reserves are gone. So it doesn't scale. And so like your point is so well made.
I think I'd like to jump in here for a minute because I just want to piggyback on both of your comments there. I can't think, well, I think we need to state this over and over and over for our larger community, because our district has been known for providing great programs and for years. And one of the things I think the larger community does not understand is the impact of McCrary's decision and how that has changed the configuration of actual amount of dollars we get for our students, and how much we could spend. It has been really limited when that came across. And so what we used to spend before McCrary and where we are now is two different places. And with that, and with the attrition, we have to think differently, and we have to really tighten our in the way we move forward. So I'm going to let Melissa explain that, but I do, since I want to say that today because I noticed that we have a very large number of community members that is chiming in and listening into this conversation, and want them to understand that we don't have that surplus of funding that we used to have in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s. I know Bellevue is beautiful, we have buildings and all that, but that does not mean that we have the same kind of funding that we used to have. So if, for those who really want to know, yeah, obviously we could have Melissa explain, but the other part is that you can look it up by yourself, look up the McCrary decision. Thanks.
I think I can't tell if with the mask on, is Director Chu, did you want to jump in?
I want
say
to add,
something?
but you haven't spoken, so I'll add when we are done.
Go ahead and do that, because I think there's a momentum to this discussion and I think it's all appropriate. So go ahead.
I wanted to call out that we spend over 40% of our levy dollars to supplement our special education funding, which is, you know, barely enough for us as it is. And so I'm going to be part of a group that's going, as you guys know, to Washington to do some advocacy around that, to do some advocacy around meals for kids, the way that folks qualify for free and reduced meals in this area is just, it makes no sense with the cost of living that we have. I also want to point out that while we were projected to have this growth and then to sort of steady out at the capacity that we were at, we were seeing some signs of this change just before the pandemic, but we didn't have enough of it. So the pandemic is part of it, but I know a lot of folks are bringing up questions about, is this just a temporary thing because of the pandemic? It really is also largely related, my understanding in the research that's been done, to housing prices in this area. And there are, and as one of our speakers pointed out, there will be some changes and corrections in that, but unlikely at the volumes in the time frame that we want to take care of. But one of the ways that was already showing up, that has already been showing up in our schools, is a really large increase in the number of 2-grade classrooms. And those are hard to manage, and we have teachers who are pretty exceptional at doing it, but it's not, when we want to make that choice, we should make it because we want to, not because funds force us to make it. And I think that right now we're in a situation where we're making that decision in more forced ways, or we're ending up maintaining higher numbers of kids in certain classes because we can't average it out across a larger number. And it's actually, that piece is hurting the day-to-day education of children every day, those kids in that classroom. And so as we seek solutions, we have to figure out a solution to those pieces because those kids deserve the best education that we can give them. So for me, this is more than money. This is about getting the education set up right. And we're going to do everything we can to drum up every dollar of support we can to give our community the most flexibility. But we gotta stay focused on what our kids are getting for the dollars we have and make sure that it's the best we can give them.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say a few things and then we'll end, I think, right on time. So first, just to kind of punctuate a little bit of what you heard Directors Watson, Chu, and Aris talk about, if you just look at what do we deliver because we need to and want to in special education, but we don't get the funding for, it's $26 million a year that we cover through our levy funds that we should be getting, but we're not. So that's just one example. And so when we talk about challenges there, and as Director Chu said, we were in Olympia doing those discussions well before the pandemic. We could see it. We could see the challenge existed well before the pandemic. That's what we've just been doing a good job, I think, navigating it. But that is not a pandemic problem. So, but it is a decision made through a court case that has just not done well for our district. So the other thing I just wanted to say, I want to come back to a point that was made earlier, which is hearing how our leadership and staff have been thinking about, well, what do we do if we're having declining enrollment and we're having these funding challenges? We've also heard a great deal of creativity and thought, and I think excitement on how to reimagine and inflect in positive ways. And I hope that doesn't get lost. The conversations have been ideations around what if, what could we do, how might we learn from things that have gone really well. And it's been a positive conversation. That does not mean what somebody called anxiety is not understandable, but we share that. And I want to underscore again, tonight's study session is the first page of the board trying to understand so that we can then coordinate with the superintendent and his fantastic executive team. How do we co-create a good timeline? How do we figure out what to do? And a key part of that is community engagement. So let me end for me, and I think then we need a break because we always shortchange ourselves on a break. I would just like to share, I was at the Youth Link meeting last night and I learned some things about what they're doing, and they would love me to underscore some positive things. So Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, is also in his honor a virtual health fair. And you can read more about it on Bellevue, Washington, diversity@bellevuewa.gov. you can email there, but there's a virtual event. It's a presentation on holistic wellness from community partners. There's going to be performances from local artists. There'll be remarks from city leaders. There will be youth-led discussion on health and racial equity. And they think it'll be a great event. It's the city of Bellevue and the Bellevue alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And it's a very exciting event. Monday, January 16th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. I think it's one of the many things that are representative of the collaboration across our city. Also coming up on Friday, March 3rd from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Bellevue Youth Theater is the Unity Through Diversity event. It's the annual special community event in partnership with Bellevue Youth Links, DEI Action Team, and the Diversity Advantage Program. So you can find more information about that on Bellevue City's website, the City of Bellevue's website, but it's just 2 events that are coming out. And with that, I think we will recess to our study session. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I see we'll give the last comment to Director Aris, and then we will take our 5-minute break before our study session. Director Aris.
Thank you, Director Serafin. I just want to take this one moment to thank all of our community that is engaging in our board meeting today, as well as online and in person. I know this study session that everyone is here for is causing stress and anxiety, but I also want you to take a moment of not to look at it as a negative thing, but as an opportunity for us to grow and be better, because I think Bellevue is resilient. We have amazing community that with a lot of creativity and resources and ideas. I hope that you'll engage with us in finding solutions to make us stronger and better, not necessarily look at it as where we're going to become worse or taking things away, but it's an opportunity to create something different and better than what we already have. I think with every struggle, there's an opportunity to grow. And so I implore everyone who's here to put that creative mindset on as we move forward in this process. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Aris. So this concludes this portion of our meeting. Our plan, as I understand it, is that we will be doing our study session in the Baker Room. Is that right? And it will be, there will be overflow for people sitting here. If that's changed, you can let me know.
I was just talking to Deputy DeVita. That would be the normal process to go there. We can offer you an option to, Deputy DeVita can make it work if you want to do it here. You simply lose the ability to gather around the way you typically do for a study session. So we'll meet your needs based on the situation, and we can make it work.
I'm perfectly happy to stay here, but I do want to just see what the 2 board directors who are right here, do they have a preference? So
I'd like to be accessible to the community who came to see the presentation. I'd like to stay here, but I wonder if we could put some tables. One of the reasons that we always go into the other room is sort of a reminder that we're actually working together. It's a session for us to dig in and study, and so we actually have conversations. Or when we're up here, it's as if we're presenting and not really like working.
We will set it up during the break.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I just want to ask.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was obliquely suggesting earlier in the day, because I just can't see that we could all crowd into that little room.
There's a physics aspect to it, so sure. Yeah. Okay.
During the break.
Sounds good. All right.